What's happening, YouTube? Caliber here. We're here to do another Epic 7 video. We're going to be covering the developer notes right here. Yeah, developer notes. And if you guys are interested in catching more of this content, don't forget to hit that like button, follow this channel, subscribe to this channel, etc., etc. And also, if you guys want to watch live content, I play a lot of variety games on Twitch. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch TV on the banner above here. Let's hop right in here into these developer notes, guys. All right, with this post, we'll be showing our players the balance adjustments that are scheduled to be applied for the update occurring on February 20th. 11 heroes, 4 artifacts will be improved, as well as a Charlotte remake be scheduled for March. So February 20th, guys, is when these are going to be rolling out. The Charlotte remake looks like it's going to be happening in March. All right, so Melissa here, guys, she gets manifestation buff. It looks like it's going to reduce the skill cooldown, is reset when the enemy is defeated. All right, so she's also getting a buff to Blood Bloom, dispel all buffs from the enemy before attacking. So let's break this down real quick, tell you how good this is. Blood Bloom is an ability when you critical hit on, you have it's going to grant you an extra turn, which also applies, if I'm not mistaken, it applies a curse to the enemy. All right, so you dispel, you curse them, and you do a critical hit on them, and you grant yourself an extra turn. All right, then you go in there with a S2, and you hit them with your S2 to kill them, kill somebody else, I don't know, and the skill cooldown is reset when the enemy's defeated. That's kind of huge because you can come back in there with an S2 right afterwards. So Melissa's buffs, 2 thumbs up, loving it, loving it, loving it. All right, Cecilia here, guys. Cloudburst, after it's awakened, attacks all enemies with a magical spear with an 85 to 100% chance to decrease attack for 2 turns. That is a huge improvement from what it was before. It was a 35 to 50% chance. Decreased attack is a very, very powerful ability. It allows you to take on units like Milkin and stuff like that. If you can get a 100% chance to decrease attack, that makes you actually pretty powerful in the game. As long as they don't have immunity on them, you got to keep that in account. All right, so Ruinous Retribution afterwards attacks all enemies with a spear infused with dark. That's her S3. With dark energy with an 85 to 100% chance to provoke for 1 turn, which people would build her super fast. She would do an AoE provoke on everybody, and you would be having a bad day. Before granting immunity to all allies for 2 turns, which is the buff and a barrier to the caster. The fact that we're getting a knight with an immunity buff like that with a provoke on top of that is kind of nasty. Yes. Dark Explosion here, it looks like it's going to get a 70% chance to put him to sleep for 1 turn. That's her S1. It goes from a 50% to 70% chance. Nightmare before and after, I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure what the difference in this is other than it says chance each, but 85% chance to decrease defense each, 85 chance each to decrease defense for 2 turns and put them to sleep for 1 turn before increase in attack. Both of these save the same exact thing. There's probably something in here I'm missing, but to me, I don't feel like Tenebria really got much of a buff. They've been kind of hitting her here and there, nothing too crazy, and she's still Tenebria. Now, Specter Tenebria, guys, here we go. This is insane. Attacks with an explosion of poison of energy with a 70% chance to inflict poison for 2 turns. This skill can't be triggered by counterattack. Attacks 2 enemies with Endless Nightmare when Endless Nightmare is on cooldown. So this is her S1. As long as Endless Nightmare is on cooldown, she's going to do freaking cleave damage like Vildred, like Zerato, and it's going to be pretty interesting, and it can't be countered attack. So I think we got a nice little hard counter to all those MLK users, and this is going to be interesting. This is going to be a very, very interesting with Specter Tenebria. I'm very surprised they did this. GG, because she needed a little bit of love, right? All right, we have Rose here, guys. 4-star hero, water-based. Covers an ally with the Shield of Light, dispelling 2 debuffs and granting a barrier for 2 turns before increasing combat readiness by 10%. A max 20%. Barrier strength increased proportional to caster defense. If I'm not mistaken, this is just going to be a thicker shield, so maybe we're gonna get something like a DN level shield, which would be kind of cool with Rose, making her a little bit more relevant. It doesn't have to be as strong as DN, but it needs to be a little bit more relevant of a shield, other than just a little sliver. Goddess Victory, after it's awakened, will grant defense. This is her combat readiness push, defense to herself. That's good. And increase an attack to all allies and a 25% combat readiness push. I think that's pretty freaking solid for Rose, man. Yes, 2 thumbs up for that too. Now we have Clarissa here, guys. Increase the attack and speed by 10%. Rage can't be dispelled. This is attached to her her enraged ability. So before it was already attack and speed, but now it can't be dispelled. It could be dispelled in the past, which we've seen is just absolutely terrible with rage mechanics, because, you know, it just makes that unit kind of useless. Then you have Hysteric, awakened after. Hysteric is her S3, attacks all enemies by spinning, inflicting 2 bleeds for 2 turns. Wait. Yeah, before it was inflict bleed for 2 turns, now it's inflict 2 bleeds for 2 turns, which is a lot more better, with a 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns, which is even better. That means she can S1 a defense break, and she can S3 a defense break, making her a very, very solid, I mean, I wouldn't say solid defense breaker, but makes her have more 50% chances of defense breaking, that's for sure. And we have Khawazu here, guys. His S3 Ember Storm, which did the unhealable debuff, is also getting a decreased defense for 2 turns, which is unhealable for was 1 turn. Now it's unhealable and decreased defense for 2 turns. Slight buff, nothing wrong with that. So it's not like Fighter Maya really needed a buff, but you know what? This is not a bad buff. It's not an overpowered buff. It's not making her completely crazy. It's just it's a good buff. It's a good buff. Her S1 here, guys, goes from the soul burn's gonna move off her S3, which increased the damage dealt, which was kind of ridiculous. Increasing the damage dealt to a guaranteed 300% damage dealt attack, which is kind of like it was basically showboating. That's all it was. So what we got here, guys, attacks with the blunt weapon with her S1, 75% chance to provoke for 1 turn. It was a 50% chance. And the soul burn provoke chance has been increased to 100%. So you can soul burn for 100% chance to provoke. Yeah. And then finishing attack here grants the caster an extra turn if an enemy is defeated. So you can go in there, you can hit that rule of light that's at 10% health in the face. Oh, yeah, it's less than 30%. Yeah, so you can hit that rule of light that's at 30% health in the face, knock her up in the air, and then turn around and provoke the next person, maybe, if you have enough souls. Either way, excellent buffs for Fighter Maya, guys. All right, so I'm not an Celestial Mercedes expert, guys, so let's just throw that out there right now. But let's try to talk about this a little bit. All right, Dimensional Rapture after. That is her S2, okay? So we're going to start with her S3, which I think is the one that matters here. The Finale Awakened after. Attacks all enemies by releasing the spell Last Book. Increase attack of the caster for 2 turns and increase combat readiness by 20% according to the number of critical hits made. So essentially, you can go in there, you could do... You could hit 4 people with critical hits, do an 80% CR push to herself. There's a book you can throw on her too, an artifact you can throw on her too that gives her a little extra combat readiness. I believe it was limited. I believe it was Dizzy's old artifact. I'm not positive though. And that would give her a 100% chance. Then you could cycle into Dimensional Rupture, attacks all enemies with a massive light spirit, dealing damage proportional to enemies' max health. All skill cooldowns decreased by 2 turns, so you could essentially go in there with a 5-turn cooldown on Finale, which is 5-turn cooldown. If you molo it, and then you can go in there and do this, making it a 3-turn cooldown, making it even closer. I'm not sure how well that's going to help her out because, like I said, I don't run her. But that's the way I'm kind of understanding how she works. So here we go, guys. Doris the Explorers, man. So they just went ahead and removed when an ally grants continuous healing, the amount of health is doubled. Healing is proportional to the allies' max health. So they just removed the continuous healing part. She just is gonna get, you know, they don't have to have continuous healing on them. She's just gonna flat out heal what she was before. So now Doris has basically become a pretty strong healer, even though she's slow and stuff like that. She is definitely a usable healer though, and this just made her super usable in my opinion. I'm not going to really go over any of this because they just basically removed the continuous healing and gave you the healing ability that it would have done if the character was continuously healing. All right, Requimroar, guys. She is getting a every time an enemy dies, all allies recover 20% extra health. That could be really, really good for like a PvE instance. And then health of the caster's combat readiness increased by 10%. So this is interesting. I don't know what to say about that. Requim got a little bit of a buff here. I know I ran her a little bit on a morale team on my free-to-play account, and that would have helped out a lot. So okay, I'll take it. It's a buff. Holy moly sacrifice, guys. Holy sacrifice is one of those abilities that's super annoying on Crow. You've been seeing it on Charles's lately. And it has a 100% chance when maxed out to be revived at 25% health. Now you're going to get granted a barrier for 1 turn after dying. The barrier is proportional to caster's max health. So Crow, super thick Crows are going to get super thick barriers. Charles's that are kind of squishy are going to get okay barriers. Interesting that they buffed that. But you know what? Good buff could change the meta up a little bit. Who knows? Shimadra staff here, guys. Increase the effective resistance of all allies by 20% on top of the healing it does. And you know what? It says increased effective resistance does not stack with other Shimadra staffs. So it stacks with other things. When more than one healing effect is granted, the strongest effect applies. Honestly, I would have liked to see the effective resistance buffed up there to like something like 40%. I think 40% would have been a better number. I think 20% is a little too low for people to still be running Shimadra staff. But I don't know. There might be a combination of artifacts you can run together to have higher effective resistance. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it's a buff. It's a buff. It gives you a little something, you know. Uberius tooth, guys. So basically, when you did a critical hit, you got to inflict additional damage on a single attack. They went ahead and just removed the critical hit part. You're just going to inflict additional damage on a single attack, which is kind of cool. Why not? So I'm really curious how this is going to work out as an artifact with the critical hit made. Are there builds that, you know, don't need critical hits this would be good on? Maybe Gunther, maybe, I have no clue, guys. Maybe this is the Gunther artifact, but I'd be real curious to see if this is ran over other artifacts. I have a feeling other artifacts are just going to kind of still be ran over Uberius tooth. Like Portrait and other damage dealing artifacts. Now we have Dingus Orb here, guys. Grants a barrier equivalent to 120% maxed out of attack to It grants a barrier to 120% of attack for 2 turns when the caster is using a non-attack skill. Increase the damage of the next attack by 15%. So a little extra something with Dingus Orb. Don't know if it's going to make it worth it, but it makes it a little bit more deadlier for people who are running it. So yeah, sure, why not? All right, so this is a sad time for me personally. This is the Charlotte remake, guys, and I'm gonna just break this down super quick. Basically, they completely remade her. She is not going to be the same Charlotte she was before. I ran her as a DPS unit on my team, and I loved using her as a DPS unit. She is moving more over to a bruiser unit that you could use as a bait tank, probably. I think that's the route they're going with her. All right, so she attacks with dual swords now with a 50% chance. This is not happening until March, by the way. To decrease attack for 1 turn. Before, she used to be able to increase her attack and also do a defense break, 50-50 chance, depending if they're 50% health, 50% below. So now she attacks, decreased attack for 1 turn. When the caster is buffed and activates the skill on their turn, the attack will target all enemies, increase the caster's combat readiness by 20%, does not trigger on dual attack. So she gets a nice little AoE ability in there if she is buffed up, and that's where we go over to her new passive, Will of the Swamp. When attacked, the caster is granted attack and defense and acquires 10 to max 20 fighting spirit. When attacked during the caster's turn, acquire fighting spirit is doubled. Increased attack and defense can only be triggered once per turn. So essentially what you could do is you use her as a water bait tank, I guess, or somebody that has AoE on the team. You throw her up there. When she's hit, she's going to, instead of getting 20 fighting spirit, she's going to get 40 fighting spirit. If this is maxed out, if I'm understanding this correctly, she'll get 40 fighting spirit. All right. So instead of having focus, 5 focus, she has fighting spirit that builds up to 100. So she increases her attack and defense, which can only be triggered once per turn. The attack and defense is triggered, which means she can also do an AoE attack with dual swords. That decreases attack for 1 turn. AoE decrease attack for 1 turn, 50% chance. Maybe. All right. Now you go over to Vortex here. Cuts all enemies while spinning with a 75% chance to make them unhealable for 2 turns. She now has an unhealable attached to her S3. A successful attack will always result in a critical hit, so you do not have to build her crit, guys. She does not need to be built crit. She's going to be able to do what she needs to do without a crit build, and this consumes 100 fighting spirit, so you have to build up to this 100 fighting spirit for this to activate. If you use a soul burn, acquire 100 fighting spirit after using this ability, so you can soul burn, use it, soul burn, and use it if you have enough soul burns happening. So this is very interesting. I foresee people probably making Charlotte a little bit thicker and using her as an actual like tank character. I don't think her S1's not going to work with Uberius, so I don't think it will. If it does, that would be kind of crazy. It's something that's going to have to be tested for sure. All right, so to jump in the Vortex, guys, a lot of you guys are thinking, well, Charlotte hits like a freaking truck. They are also nerfing her Vortex damage by 34.4%. All right, on top of that 34.4%, I don't know if, okay, so this right here equals up to 30, 40, 50%. This right here equals up to 40%. So there's 10% damage missing on this table here. Don't know if that's mixed in with this 34% damage reduced, but if it's not, that's 44% damage reduced on Charlotte. Is that a terrible thing? I mean, I could hit upwards to 20k easy with Charlotte. So, I mean, I don't think that's going to hurt her DPS tremendously. Yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt her DPS tremendously. A successful attack will always result in a critical hit. So, what are my thoughts on Charlotte? I think Charlotte's become more of a bruiser type unit, more of a person that you're going to stack some hit points on. You're going to make sure she takes a few hits on the team. I think she's going to be a pretty decent unit. I'm going to definitely test her out. I am not happy with, I'll be honest, I'm not happy with the remake, but that's fine. You know, she wasn't being used. This might make her a little bit more usable to more people. I will test it. I already have a maxed out Charlotte, so I will already test her out. So yeah, I'll already be testing her out. So if you guys are interested, I will be doing a complete review on this as soon as it goes live. On my thoughts on it. It may not be Mola Gourd, but I will be testing it out for sure. All right, guys, if you guys like this content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, show the channel a little bit of love, support. Each person that hits that like button, each person that leaves a comment below puts me in a better algorithm for people to see these videos, making these videos have opportunity to be seen by more people, which makes the channel grow, and the channel grow means more videos and, you know, more content. And that's what it's all about, guys. And I appreciate everybody who watched through the whole entire video. That also helps quite a bit. So thank you so very much for watching everything. And you guys have yourselves a great day. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out. All right, first of all, we're going to solve problems here, chat. We're going to solve problems. This guy